welcome back. I'm Keith Barry.
I'm Kelly Funkhauser.
I'm Joe Veselak.
And we're going to talk cars today about the Mini Countryman. It's the first of Mini's sort of new look of vehicles. They're a little less Anglophile, a little less Austin Powersy, a little less steampunk, a little more streamlined, still a bit quirky. So we just recently bought for our test program a 2025 Mini Countryman S All-4. It's all-wheel drive like all the Countrymans out there. There's an electric version. There's a John Cooper Works version that has more power, but we bought the one, as we always do, the one that most people are going to buy, and that's the S. It comes with a 241 horsepower, 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, a 7-speed dual clutch transmission, which we will have a lot to talk about, and the starting price, about $38,900, but we added on some of the common features, power front seats, surround sound system, auto dimming rearview mirror, parking assistance, adaptive cruise control, some of the advanced driving assistance features, wireless charging, navigation. That brought it up, along with the destination fee, to $43,695. So not cheap for a small SUV, Mini's biggest car ever, but still pretty small. I love that it's quirky. We need quirkiness in the world, but as soon as you get in, we're going to start inside the car, I think.
Yeah.
Because there's this big. Well, Kelly, why don't you tell us a little about the what it looks like in there?
Sure.
Because it gets weird real fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And lack of angles, as you said, is kind of a theme throughout. There's very round edges on everything, starting with the center screen. So the display screen is actually a circle, totally round.
Like the old Mini, like the speedometer.
So retro-ish. Yep. So it's a 9.4-inch diameter round display.
You need pi.
Right, yeah. Back to math class.
Yeah.
And then there's also a head-up display, but there is no driver display. So instrument cluster, instrument panel in front of the driver doesn't exist. So just that head-up display. And it's a unique head-up display, similar actually to Mazda, where they have a little clear, transparent plexiglass pop-up. And that is, embedded in the dashboard, lower than the windshield, right? So it's not projecting onto the windshield itself. So that, in a way, acts as the driver display.
Yeah, I found that I needed it a lot because otherwise you'd have to constantly be looking over at that center screen.
Right. So without that, you would just have the center screen similar to what Tesla has in their Model 3 and Model Y. So just that one screen. So at least it has that, whereas Tesla doesn't. So that's a bonus there.
Yeah, that feels almost like it was plucked out and put there almost as like an aftermarket thing. Where it's a little cheap in a way, just how they implemented that screen.
Like the engineers were driving it and like, oh, crap, my eyes are always off the road.
We need something, hurry up, put something there.
That in there. And,
and it does actually feel like an afterthought in a way because it, like I said, it's in some of the Mazdas and some older type of vehicles where that used to be the design rather than projecting it on the windshield. So it really does almost feel like an afterthought. Hurry up, what can we do to fix this?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, as far as the, we're going to just, there's a lot to talk about with this car because it's a car that I think, I'm not going to give anything away by saying that we really wanted to like this car.
Oh, yeah.
Because it looks cool, it doesn't look as goofy, it's interesting, and we always liked how Minis drove. We loved the last Countryman. It was one of those cars that was like never in the lot. Someone always took it home. It's an interesting size. It feels really roomy inside, but it's just, there seem to be like a lot of things a little wrong with it, and that includes driving it.
Yeah. So it just doesn't have the Mini DNA that we know and we love. We like small, quick steering, really sharp handling, and that just doesn't really, that's not the case here where, the steering, a lot of this stuff is kind of just okay. I wouldn't say certain things in terms of ride and handling are necessarily like that bad. They're not great, but a lot of this stuff just feels like it's just getting by, and it doesn't have that true, what Mini was about, or the ones we remember, early 2000s Minis. I love those, love to drive, from the Cooper S. That they were just really fun and engaging, and I don't find that in this.
Yeah, I mean, so as we all know, BMW owns Mini. This one is made in Leipzig, Germany. It's based on the BMW X2, which we have some feelings about, and it kind of drives a little more like a better X2.
So the best way to describe it is, if you've heard our feedback of the X2, take that and just be slightly more refined, but altogether that's not really saying much, because we're not overly impressed by the X2 either. You get a little better visibility. That's a plus. I like that. Little more cargo area, but yeah, in the end, the overall driving experience is just slightly better than the X2. And then that's not a Mini, and even further away from that Mini DNA. So when you get in this thing, or you look at it, it looks bigger, but you say, well, it's a Mini. I'm sure it'll be fun, and it doesn't necessarily deliver on that front.
Yeah, that go-kartiness is kind of missing.
Yeah.
I noticed something that a bunch of us complained about was that dual clutch transmission in that sort of taking off from a stop or in stop and go traffic. It just sort of it lurches, and you go forward, and then all of a sudden it feels like you're being you go real hard off the line, and then it kind of holds you back. And I had passengers say, "Can you drive a little more?" I'm trying. It's not me. It's the car.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah. So dual clutches, especially dual clutches of the past in general, they're a little rough off of the line, where it's taking the timing of engaging the clutch off of the line, and then along with that, it's you have to have with the turbocharged engine, smoother engines with higher horsepower seem to pair better with dual clutches. And when you start getting into small displacement turbos, they're much better nowadays. But especially in the past with small displacement turbos, and you're having that where the power comes on maybe a little too abrupt, or it's a non-linear power band, that you'll notice some of that surging off the line. So you have a delay in the transmission from the clutch, engaging, or the timing not maybe being as, well tuned, then followed up by an engine that may not have that smooth or linear of a power delivery. So it's a challenge there to get that down. Just like in the X2, there's issues there. I would say it's slightly better in this situation in the Mini, but still overall not great, especially when you look at how some of them perform today, and how, those issues, they still exist, but they're not as prevalent.
And I'll just add that there's an issue with the engine idle, the auto stop start system too, where it doesn't latch or doesn't default to whatever you set it to. So if you want it off, it turns back on every single time you restart the car.
Yeah.
And that also, we noticed there was some additional delay to just add to that initial launch. Getting going.
And that's some of these auto start stop systems are much better tuned
Some are
than this
totally
one.
seamless.
You don't even notice it.
Exactly. This one you notice, and you want to turn it off, and then you turn it off once, and you got to do it every time.
Yeah, you add that to the delay, so now you have a start stop that's too soon to shut off and too late to start up.
Exactly.
And now you throw a whole nother.
You're just starting to add pile stuff on.
It's like hiccups and sneezes every time you start
Right,
to get the car off which is not, the Mini. Now, there is a setting in this car that's called go-kart.
Yes, there is.
It's not a setting, it's an experience. So Mini loves and sometimes it's cool, but they love to kind of make ways to customize the vehicle. And so, like, one thing you can do is you can make the tail lights flash as a Union Jack, or as different symbols and things. You can't make any obscene ones if someone's tailgating you, but I'm waiting for that. But this experiences menu is on a little switch in the dashboard, and there's like 8 of them.
Yes, 7 or 8. I can't remember how many.
Yeah, but there's too many. So it's like some cars will have like a sport mode or an eco mode, or some cars will let you switch what the dashboard looks like because everything's screens now. But this does both, and it doesn't really tell you, I found. It's cool it exists, but...
Yeah, it doesn't give you much of any information as to what it's doing. I think the only one that was pretty clear what it was doing was one where it started turning on the massaging seats, and I was messing around with it, and I switched to turn it off because I was like, I don't like this, and I wanted to get out of it, and I went to a different experience, and they didn't turn off, and then I was panicking. How do I turn these things off? But yeah, like you said, some of them are drive modes, like a sport mode and an eco or a comfort mode, and they change some of those driving dynamics, whether it's the steering or the throttle or anything like that. And some seemingly didn't do any of those things and were more just interior themes for aesthetics, and some just kind of changed the interior, the screen colors and the layout of things. And so it was quite a confusing mix of not knowing exactly what it's doing and what you're going to get as you kind of cycle through all these different experiences.
Yeah, I can just picture someone getting in and saying, "Oh, I like the speedometer looking like that," and not realizing that they've changed the twice the throttle response. Why is my car so loud all of a sudden? Which is interesting.
Like even in the go-kart mode, I believe there's 2 tachometers come up, and it's also a really busy screen. And I found myself in balance mode, which I didn't know what it was, but it starts massaging me, like Kelly said, and then I don't like being massaged, and now I got to figure out how to shut it off while I'm driving. And I eventually figured out you can just force it off by pushing the lumbar, and that was my remedy. I'm sure there's another way to do it, but I didn't have the time to figure it out. Which there's a lot to learn.
Right.
Yeah. If you're not going to sit with the owner's manual, which we know nobody does.
Right.
We do, but that's our job. But if you're not going to sit with the owner's manual, if you're just going to get in the car and you're driving, it can be like really alarming when all of a sudden, what is it doing? Also, maybe not alarming, but just something we'd like to know a little bit more about. And this is kind of your thing. There are cameras inside the vehicle.
Yes, there are multiple cameras inside the vehicle. So first, there's an infrared camera behind the steering wheel, kind of where the driver display should be. Again, it's like a little pill-shaped camera back there, and that one is used for their what they call traffic jam assist mode, which is lane centering and adaptive cruise control, but it only at low speeds. So when you're going in a traffic jam kind of below 40-ish miles per hour and following a car, then this camera comes on and allows you to do hands-free driving. So you can take your hands off the wheel, you go into assisted plus mode, and it lets you take your hands off, and then that's when that camera is active. There's another camera up on the headliner near the rear view mirror. And that one is
one looks like a camera.
It's total, clear as day. That's a lens of a camera there. And it's actually looking at the entirety of the inside of the cabin. So what it claims to be doing is looking for occupants, right? Says, to know if occupants are in certain seating positions, et cetera. That you can also take selfies and send, clips of videos. It
can work
to
like a dash
friends.
cam if there's a crash and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not really clear what it's for other than for fun. But I looked in the owner's manual to read more about it, and it said there was a way to turn it off. And so I followed the steps and went into the apps menu and looked for camera so that I could go into the settings. We didn't have that in our settings at all. So in the owner's manual, how to turn it off, seemingly you can't turn it off in our car. So I don't know if that's an issue with the software, if they forgot to put it in there or what. So I ended up just putting a big piece of tape over top of it because I couldn't turn it off. And so that was a little disconcerting for sure.
So again, we haven't fully tested this car. This is just our initial thoughts, but this is definitely going to look into that. Maybe talk to some folks on our privacy team.
That's the next step, exactly.
Just to have them take a look.
What's going on here?
Yeah, because it is common for cars to have driver monitoring cameras,
right?
And it can be a very good thing if that information never leaves the car and is handled properly.
Exactly.
But the infrared camera versus that's Keith driving that car is a little bit different.
Right, exactly. Especially if you have young children or other occupants in there that don't know there's a camera, you want to be able to turn that thing off.
Absolutely. Yeah. The other thing I found is the software in general, in sort of reading our logs so far, everyone's had some like kind of weird experience. Like when you turn I noticed when I turned the car on, it said it couldn't find its tires. And I'm thinking, well, that makes me very nervous.
Yeah, that seems like a problem.
Yeah, and then on the speed limit, it's supposed to tell you what the speed limit is, and sometimes it would just say limit.
Right. So right. I had that happen too. And it wasn't very clear, why it was saying that. I noticed even when I drove it actually this morning on the way here, I was on the freeway and it picked up the speed limit sign, the posted one as I passed it. And then it almost like timed out. So I didn't get off the freeway. I was just driving regularly. And then it kind of went back to limit. It's like, it should kind of know I'm still on the same road. I don't know why it kept doing that. It was kind of confusing and
it worked
a little
on
distracting.
our test loop out here.
Yeah.
And then it went away, which is just really strange. And the
Right.
other thing, we had some issues with like Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, things just skipping.
Yeah. Every time you switch modes, which I think it's an issue they know, or I don't know if it's supposed to happen or not. You change modes and your audio drops out just for a second. Usually it brings on a chime to tell you, hey, you just jumped into this. Yeah. One of those. I believe
Someone
those.
does that.
Yeah, I
It's
believe
like Paul
that's
Schaefer back there, just sort of, hey. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Younger audiences.
yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's supposed to do that. Just weird glitchy things that are maybe not like the biggest annoyance, but it's there.
I would say there was one big annoyance for me, and that was in the FM radio station list, both in the listing all stations and even when you got to favorites. They were listed in alphabetical order by like W
this, W that, W
yes,
that.
exactly. So regardless of whatever the actual frequency was, I went and I checked. I wrote a few down of what the order was, and it was like, this one was 1059, followed by 90.1, followed by 104. They were in alphabetical order, and they didn't have the frequency listed with it. So it was literally just an alphabetized list of random radio stations.
So it's like in Europe where they have like the digital audio broadcasting and they all have like funny names of the stations and stuff. That would work.
I have
just
no
like
idea what the
someone's
names
never
of the
come
stations
to,
are.
Yeah. Someone's it just feels like there's just some things that just didn't get quite.
Need some refinement.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of things about this vehicle we like. The visibility is great. The seats.
Yeah. So you can fold the second row down in 3 sections, so you can still retain 2 adults back there, 2 passengers back there, and maybe fit some skis or some snowboards. Also, the front seat, I do like the driving position. I think most did, as well as found the seat to be pretty comfortable. There's plenty of adjustment. Everything seems well spaced. The difficult controls are easy to reach, which is a good thing or a bad thing. But and overall, I will say also about the transmission, even though it has the low speed drivability issues with the timings and delays, it's pretty well tuned at speed.
Yeah.
And the shifts are crisp. Once you're up and going, everything is smooth, and it's actually a pretty nice experience there. So not to beat up on the transmission too much, but when you have low speed drivability issues where you're spending a lot of that time, that's something you really need to take into consideration.
Yeah.
And some of the things that I liked is, the cabin wasn't necessarily the quietest cabin in the world, but it wasn't overly loud either. I think it was just kind of what we were expecting it to be. And then the storage, I actually thought there was some handy little storage nooks and crannies, right? There was a good spot really to put your phone on the wireless charger, tucked away there. There was some, covered storage bins. I think someone said it was a trash can technically, but I don't think I'd use it as a trash can.
Oh.
And some like tucked under little areas that you can slide the armrest to have access to kind of some more open storage too. So that was a positive, I would say, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fit and finish in the interior was interesting.
Yeah.
There were these interesting fabrics and mesh, and they combined a bunch of different materials, so it didn't look boring. It didn't look cheap, but it didn't look...
Yeah, it looked plush, but I would say when you actually touch it, it was a little bit scratchy, including on the seats. There was even where the logo is on the back of the seat was actually scratching my back and snagging my shirt a little. So it looks nice, but again, a little bit of scratchiness on the fabric.
Yeah, I mean, all in all, it's a bit of a mixed bag. It's a car that I don't think we're going to be everyone's going to be fighting each other at the end of the day to get to the parking lot to drive it home the way they were with the old one. But, if you're taking a road trip, you're 1 or 2 people, it's something, we're going to put it through our full tests and find out exactly how it performs. We're going to spend a lot more time with it. Maybe there'll be a software update that fixes some of these weird things.
Right.
And we'll see what happens. So, I know everyone kind of said that it's a car that we kind of wanted to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really wanted to love
I
it.
think everyone really wanted those quirkiness to kind of, be an added value, but I think it was just quirkiness for the sake of quirkiness.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. We'll spend some more time in it, live with it a little more, maybe put some skis in it over the winter and see if they actually fit.
Yeah.
So to learn more about the Mini Countryman, you can read our first drive at cr.org. And if you subscribe, easy for me to say, to our newsletter, we'll let you know as soon as the full review is out and all the numbers and the overall score and the road tests and everything else. So on to questions, which you have gone to cr.org/talkingcars and submitted questions to us, and we're going to answer them. And if you haven't, what are you waiting for? Go to cr.org/talkingcars, all one word, to submit questions. So our first question is from Karen, who says, I'm a longtime member of Consumer Reports, and I would like to know if this is true. I heard a long time ago that having a white vehicle is best for safety since others can see you. Is this true, or is this an urban legend? I love debunking urban legends.
Yeah, so we actually looked into this a little bit, and we're finding some information and I think a research paper actually that mentioned that white actually is statistically safer for the color of safe crashes, right?
Yeah, so this is research from 2007 from Monash University in Melbourne, Australia. And so a lot of differences. They don't have a lot of snow in Melbourne. But at the same time, they said that the results of their analysis looking at crash data identified a clear statistically significant relationship between vehicle color and crash risk. Compared to white vehicles, a number of colors were associated with a higher crash risk. No color was statistically safer than white, although a number of other colors didn't have difference.
Weren't worse.
Exactly.
Right.
And the association, they said, was strongest during daylight hours. So yeah, apparently in Australia in 2007, at least driving a white car is safer.
Right. And the interesting part is you said this was during the day, right? So I just wanted to add, at nighttime, the car color doesn't really matter so much. What matters are headlights. So you want to make sure you're getting a car that has really good headlights, both so that you can see visibility looking out on the road, but also so that other vehicles can see you. And one of the things that we actually look for and test here at the test track is if vehicles have automatic headlights and automatic high beams as well. And what we like to look for is whether those essentially are default on, right? So if you turn them off, maybe it's a monostable control that kind of, snaps back to being default on auto. So we look for that as well, because it really is important to have good headlights so that you can see and others can see you as well.
I love coming by an airport, like where the rental car terminal is at night, and seeing everyone drive out and their headlights are off.
And they forget, right? Yeah. It's easy to forget, especially if you're under, all those overhead lights and you turn them off once. And that's why we like to have them automatically turn back on, so that if you forget, no problem.
So I think the answer is, Karen, if you want to buy a car that's like a fun color, go out and buy a car that's a fun color. I think, it's not a huge difference, but yeah, you might be a little bit safer.
Who knew?
According to this one study. So
that was an interesting one to look up.
Exactly. Nick from Tampa, Florida has a question. I know you've discussed exorbitant destination charges on the show. I noticed an $800 pre-delivery service charge when searching nearby dealer's inventory, but no destination charge. Another dealer has an $1,100 delivery processing and handling fee, but no pre-delivery service charge. The first dealer's website says the pre-delivery service charge represents costs and profit to the dealer. They're just putting it out there. It's the dealer profit fee. I love it.
They're saying what it is.
Just say this is for items such as inspecting, cleaning, and adjusting vehicles and preparing documents related to the sale. Nothing about transporting the car from the assembly plant to the dealer, which is what a destination charge is. But I see no destination charge. Is this merely a new name for an old charge? Have you seen this before? So Nick, I want to point out, this is Nick from Tampa, Florida. Florida makes this unique. So there are different charges here that you're seeing. So a dealer has to, on the window sticker of a car, show a destination charge. That is from the manufacturer. It's the transportation costs of getting the car shipped. It's non-negotiable. It's basically, it should be baked into the price of the car, but it allows them to say it's $39.99 instead of $40,000. So that is separate. What you are talking about, Nick, are sometimes they're called dock fees. Sometimes they're called all kinds of different things. And some states have rules about how much can be charged to consumers, how much dealers can charge. Some states don't. Guess which state doesn't? And our friends over at Car Edge, which is another great podcast and place, it actually looked at it, and they found that Florida has some of the highest documentation fees. So these are fees that are just like you said, some of them are just dealer profit fees. Some of them pay for the cost of doing business, but some of this are the ways that dealers make money. They'll lowball you on the price of a car, or maybe they won't, and then they'll throw on a $1,800 pre-delivery service charge. So that's why, I know we've all bought cars. For CR. This is like why we asked for the out-the-door price, right?
Yeah. I think, ultimately it comes down to what is the final price? What am I going to be paying? And they can hide added costs wherever they want, but that won't matter if you still just aren't, comfortable with the overall price. And usually I always just am when I go to buy a vehicle for testing, I'm pretty straightforward with just, I want to look at a breakdown of get a purchase order and a window sticker, put it side by side, look at a few things. I notice VIN etching is always in there, and I notice that's one thing you can just go and immediately say, I'm not paying for that. And they go, okay, fair enough. Every time, 9 times out, I've never had pushback. So that's one thing, recommend, look at this stuff. It's okay to question it, but ultimately really just not letting those charges get in the way and looking at the overall price. And honestly, if they're hiding charges like that, that's a dealership I probably wouldn't entertain buying a car from. So I wouldn't feel comfortable with, that type of shadiness if you don't really know, exactly what those charges are for, and they're not willing to, spell it out for you.
Yeah, they're going to make their money somewhere. So it could be the car. I don't mind if they sell me a car for $500 and charge me a $25,000, $25,000 fee, or they sell me a car for $24,000 with $100 worth of fees. In the end, it's what you're paying for the car that matters, and the dealer's going to make money somewhere. But this just feels shady. I think it also, though, it does depend. It shows that it's different state to state. Like New York caps dock fees, so you don't have those, but you might have. When we bought cars in New York, we found it's different than buying cars in Connecticut, different than buying cars in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've heard often is, well, we can't change that fee because then we'll be, we can't change the fee because we have to change the same fee to everyone. Otherwise, we'll be accused of discriminating against consumers. And fine, then take it off something else in the price of the vehicle. Negotiate that somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. Transparency is helpful in looking and comparing the window sticker to, all of the documents that they send you. Make sure you're not just getting the document from the dealer that says this is how much you're being charged. If you want to actually know the specific destination fee, again, look at the window sticker. That's not state specific. That's all vehicles sold in the U.S., it will be on the window sticker of what the destination fee is specifically. So you can look there for that. And
unfortunately, if you live next door to the factory versus you live on the other side of the country, it's going to be the same.
Exactly.
It's going to be the same destination fee. But again, it's one of those situations where if a dealer, this is why we start the negotiation before you even walk to the dealer. So Nick, you're doing the right thing. So the next thing you're supposed to do is email that dealer and say, show me the window sticker, and I'm not paying, what's the out the door price? And then compare that with another dealer and do the exact same thing. And if they try and throw one of these fees on at the end, walk out.
Yeah, dealerships, there's plenty to go to. If you're not satisfied or think that, these hidden fees or fees that are getting thrown on at the end, if you don't like how they're operating, find another dealer.
Yeah, I had that happen actually with a dealer locally for a brand I'm not going to mention. But we got there and they said, oh, there's actually so the way that we do it is once we've negotiated it, we get a check printed. So they can't take more money from me. So I, get in the office and I had the check and they said, well, there's actually an extra $1,000 fee that I'm so sorry. My sales guy didn't tell you about it. So I said, well, I have a check for this much. Goodbye. And I wasn't even to my car when they came running after me and saying, just this once, we'll just this once.
Yeah.
And that was, we're doing it anonymously. So it wasn't.
Yeah, you need to bring a check for $1,000 less to every car you buy.
Say, take it or leave
That's the
it.
lesson learned.
I wonder if that would work. Anyhow, be careful out there. And again, it's state to state. It's different. But yeah, they call different fees different things.
Yeah, and another thing to look for is when they're trying to, say your monthly fee will be this many dollars, right? Rather than talking about the total price over, the final price of the car. That's a way that some of those fees can kind of get mixed in and hidden in a way. So make sure you're actually looking at the total price of the car and then break that down by, the monthly payments, rather than saying, if you're willing to pay this much per month, that's kind of how they get that added in there.
Of course, if you, because you're watching Talking Cars and you subscribe to Consumer Reports, that you already go in there with your financing all set up. So you know how much your monthly payment is going to be. We have a bunch of information about car buying, about destination fees, about dock fees, about the tricky things that dealers try to do to make a little more money off of you. They're all over at cr.org, which is also where you go, cr.org/talkingcars, to submit your questions about buying a car, about the color of the car, about how a transmission works. And we'll answer them if you send them to us. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk cars again soon.